Welcome back to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we go back and we check out a Netflix original film in the order of release. Today we have Netflix we have the 80th film. 80. Number 80. It's the 2018 drama Come Sunday, directed by Joshua Marston. It stars Chiwetel Ejiofor, Jason Segel, Condola Rashad, Lakeith Stanfield, Stacey Sargeant, Vondie Curtis-Hall, Danny Glover, and Martin Sheen. I'm Jesse, and I'm here with MJ.
How are you, Jesse?
Good, how are you?
I'm very, very well. What a great cast.
Number 80.
You know what? So I write a few little notes on every movie we watch. Not too much. I try and write a few, but before I write it, I write the title of the film, and I write the number of Netflix film. And man, it was nice writing 80.
80. It's a nice, solid, straight number.
80. We've done well.
Whew,
If we don't
crazy.
say so ourselves.
We start our show off with our Fast Flicks, where we each give our own little summary of our thoughts on the film. MJ, what are your thoughts on Come Sunday?
It's based on the true story of renowned Bishop Carlton Pearson, who strays away from what he's preached his entire life when he begins to interpret certain passages of the Bible differently and choosing to believe that hell might not exist.
I really like that. That was nice. That was good. Mine's very similar, but not as long.
Well, it is a fast flick, so I did take my time with it.
No, you were still fast. I've just said it's a bishop who struggles with the common interpretation of doctrine, and he wants to promote more inclusion and love. That's where I'm at, going from. Yeah, done.
This is coming from a guy, Jesse, weren't you Bible captain or church captain?
There's a possibility that in high school I may have been, Jesus captain.
Captain. What was the actual term?
Religion captain? I think it was religion captain.
I didn't do religion at my school.
Yeah,
but,
very...
You did. Jesse told me this like 2 weeks ago, like completely, like we didn't even know this film was coming up.
Nah.
I think we're going to have a few discussions about religion at some point in the next half
There's
hour.
a possibility, and there's a possibility, yeah, like I grew up through a Catholic education system, but since school I've had very little to do with that. So, there's a possibility that maybe I connected with the main protagonist in this film a little bit as well.
Yeah, and then look, full disclosure from me as well. I am Catholic, grew up Catholic, but not overly Catholic. I go to church once a year on Christmas Eve. I believe in God, but maybe not to the letter of the Bible. So just so you know where we're coming from when we start talking about this stuff.
Because it's a tricky conversation when you talk about religion. So good disclosure. I like that.
And while we're doing disclosures, let's do a spoiler alert as well.
Sure.
If you haven't seen the movie Come Sunday and you're interested in seeing it before you listen to us, we are going to spoil the film in the next... you know how long this episode is by the time you're listening to it, but we don't actually know how long it's going to be, so let's say a half hour to an hour.
Good. Alright, so we start our show after our Fast Flicks with our little film history or anything that we've learnt about this film. What have you learnt, Andrew?
Yeah, well, obviously Bishop Carlton Pearson is a real dude.
Yeah.
So it's based on a real story, and from what I can gather, based pretty closely on his story. I think there are a few things that were whether sped up in timelines or a few characters that were like an amalgamation of other characters just to make it cleaner. But he was on This American Life, the radio podcast, whatever you want to call it. And that basically sparked the idea behind this film. Yeah,
and the host of that radio show, I think it was Ira Glass, she went on to produce this film too. So they used her interview to form the basis for this film, like you said.
Have you listened to any This American Life?
Isn't This American Life the Serial?
Serial, it's one of them.
I'm pretty sure
it rings a bell every time
I'm pretty sure they used to say This American Life presented with Serial or something like that. I'm pretty sure. I think
it's either that or so. I listen to very few episodic podcasts. I listen to a lot of, ironically, as we have a podcast that we're releasing. I don't listen to a lot of episodic podcasts. But I have listened to Serial. I have listened to things like S-Town, like the big ones. And I'm sure one of them is This American Life. It's probably Serial. Yeah. So the film has a little bit of a background to it, a little bit of a story as to how it got to where it got to now. So Jonathan Demme was actually initially attached to this film back in 2014, I think, when they first started having talks about it. So Jonathan Demme was the Academy Award-winning director of Silence of the Lambs. And it also had Jeffrey Wright down to play Carlton Pearson. So eventually that kind of all fell through. And when Jonathan Demme left the film, Jeffrey Wright left it as well. So in July 2016, Josh Marston then came on to direct the film. Chiwetel Ejiofor also came on board to play Pearson, and Netflix also jumped on at that point to distribute the film. So that was July 2016, and then by January 2017, they had all their eggs in a row.
Yep. Started filming.
And they started filming.
Carlton Pearson's mentor in this, Oral Roberts, was played by Martin Sheen.
It was, yep.
And originally they had Robert Redford down to play that role, which would have been his third Netflix original film. Who would
For
have
a
thought
guy who's not doing a lot right now, he's
pumped
really
out a few in the
picking
last
off
few years.
Netflix movies.
So I thought that was a little bit of a nice little Netflix connection.
But he actually left. Like, he didn't leave for any other reason than he had scheduling issues.
Yeah.
So it was during pre-production. He left quite late.
Like you mentioned before, like the role played by Jason Segel of Henry, it's a composite character of a lot of assistants that Carlton had during his stage. Yeah.
So then it premiered at Sundance on January 21 back in 2018, and then released worldwide on Netflix on the 13th of April. So
yeah,
a little bit of time in between.
So the events of this film, they take place in Tulsa in Oklahoma.
They do.
It was filmed in and around Atlanta, Georgia, though. And Atlanta, Georgia, the reason was for the tax incentives. So
save some money.
Save some money. And a lot of the Marvel films film in Georgia. It's this hotbed of a place to film because of the incentives they get.
They're spending all their money on Ejiofor and Segel and Sheen.
And like I've got that recognition now in my brain where, you go through the credits, and then as soon as you see that peach on the screen, it's like, it's done in Georgia.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
You're good like that. You
just pick up on random things that mean nothing to no one except myself.
No, that's interesting. I like to hear it. That's a whole part of this section. We think it's for the audience. I just like to hear what you have to tell me.
The working title for this was Heretics.
Yep.
Which I thought was interesting.
So that was the name of the episode of
on
the podcast.
Yeah, or the radio show. So for the director, he made a comment. He's like, this is a really important story that he wanted to tell because he felt like in this era of fake news and really hardening religious divisions, that's why he wanted to tell this story now. So
obviously there's a little bit of a story here that's happening at the time. You obviously weren't aware of it. You didn't.
No,
you hadn't heard of it.
No, new story for me.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to. I wasn't sure how big this news was. We've had films before that are very American that we aren't aware of because we're not from America, and I wasn't sure if this might be one of them as well.
It sort of brings back memories of that one that we saw that was about the most hated woman in America. Yeah,
that's what I was thinking as well.
Yeah,
because I think we were supposed to know about her. Yeah. Everyone else knew about that story, but except for us.
What about consensus?
Yeah, not bad. So it's a 5.9 out of 10 on IMDb, 1,700 ratings, and it's a 3 out of 5 on Letterboxd, so very similar. 903 ratings, so not a heap of ratings. And it got mixed reviews, but Chiwetel Ejiofor did get rave reviews for his performance. And we're going to get into that later, I'm sure. This one was a bit lower on the Google users percentages, 79. Oh, wow. Yeah, which is quite a little bit down on our previous
Google,
ones.
what are you doing?
Who's going on Google, typing in Come Sunday and going, I didn't like this film.
Thumbs down.
Just move on if you didn't like it.
Rotten Tomatoes, 68% on 34 reviews, which makes it fresh.
34. So that was obviously Sundance, so there were a few critics watching it there. Right.
The audience was a bit lower on 59% on nearly 150 ratings.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of reflective of, it's kind of that middle of the road. Look, it's a 3 out of 5 on Letterboxd, and if I'm going to rate a movie 3 stars, I liked that movie, right? Yep. So it's not bad.
Did you have a Netflix percentage match? Again, no?
No, I didn't, and it's starting to piss me off, Jesse.
I didn't have one for this one either, though, so it's okay. We're in the same boat for this one. I tried the trick to see if I could
didn't work for you?
Nah, it didn't work. Didn't work.
I wonder what made you think that in the first place.
I don't know. I was trying to come up with some
so
understanding.
You hadn't done it, or you thought you might have done it?
Yeah, I thought I might have, and that's what... But no, obviously, no. Didn't work.
We'll have to find. Maybe we can send Netflix an angry email saying, we want some Netflix matches, please.
Please, yes. For everything. I don't want a percentage. Surely the data you have on me, you can give me a percentage match for everything.
Yeah, give me a 10% if you don't think I will like it.
Then we wouldn't watch it, though.
No, not me. We're dedicated to this podcast. We watched Paradox, so...
So, what? Let's get into our early thoughts on this one. Fill me in. Your early thoughts on this film. What did you think?
Oh, Jesse, I was all in on this film.
Oh, good.
I thought it was completely stirring. Chiwetel Ejiofor was one of the most powerful performances I've seen in a long time. I thought he was incredible. I also thought Jason Segel was great. I look forward to watching him in more dramatic characters after watching him in The Discovery on Netflix as well, which I thought he was great. Lakeith Stanfield is always great. I think this role was a little bit more low-key for him, but he barely puts a foot wrong. And the content and the conversation was just mesmerising for me. I think the arguments either way and some of the big dialogue scenes, I was eating out of the palm of his hand. I loved this film. Loved it.
Wow. I thought you were going to hate this. I honestly thought you were not going to like this one at all. Oh. So I'm shocked. I'm like shell-shocked. I was like...
We were talking last week how you think you know me so well.
Yeah, I've got no idea because I did not think you were going to like this. I thought you were going to... Yeah, that's all right. That's good.
What did you think?
I'm similar to you. Like, the cast engaged me without even seeing a moment of this film. So going in knowing that these people are in it, I'm like, I'm going to be engaged, at least.
That's true.
While this is based on a true story... so I get that they're not going to change fact for the film. There was a part in this film where the Carlton sort of has this inspiration for his change by watching this footage for Rwanda.
Yep.
And I don't know why, but this really put me off in the middle section of the film because I had in my mind at the start of the film that they've set this in 1998. So then I couldn't work out, because I did, like, back in my university days and high school days, like, I did a lot of work on the Rwandan genocide. And I knew, like, I'm like, that's 1994 in my head. So to me, I was just struggling with this confusion of why has it taken him 4 years to work out what's been going on? And that's just me personally. But other than that, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the film. But that really put me off for a big chunk of this film.
Well, what was happening in Rwanda in 98?
I don't know.
It obviously still wasn't.
Yeah, it was
great.
still obviously on the news. But it just confused me having this big thing at the start saying it was in 1998 and then me like thinking, okay, I'm sure Rwanda was in 1994.
Look,
maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Rwanda was in 1998.
Regardless of whether it was or it wasn't.
Yeah, it was just... If
it was 98, you're going to look like an absolute dick.
I am.
Because this film... this film was jaded for you.
And like, I've learned everything wrong. So it was from April to July 1994.
Okay,
so it just put me off because I couldn't work out why it took him 4 years to have this revelation.
And I'm gonna sound incredibly ignorant right now, because in 1994... I was just starting primary school. Like, I wasn't very old. So I wasn't aware of the coverage of the Rwanda genocide at the time. Now, is it feasible that in 1994 that the coverage internationally of the Rwanda genocide wasn't that big?
You are 100% on track. The 1994, it was a denial that anything was happening. So I get that, but like still I don't know. It just threw me off.
So, but maybe it was 98 when everything started to come out.
Yeah.
I must admit, when that started to happen, I was like, "Oh, this is a film about him helping in Rwanda."
Yeah.
That's what I thought was going to happen. And then he went to his next sermon and he completely threw everything out.
All right.
So you liked it?
Yeah, I did. I enjoyed it.
You saw through.
I saw through
him being a bad person for ignoring Rwanda for 4 years.
Yeah. That's it. Okay, character time. Let's talk about some characters. And we have to start this with Bishop Carlton Pearson.
Carlton Pearson. Do you want to start with him?
Sure. So every character that we're going to talk about in this film, I'm going to discuss based on him and the impact that they had on him.
That's fair.
Because to me, the rest of the cast are insignificant other than their connection to him.
Yep. No,
that's just how I'm reading it.
That's fair. I will jump in if I don't think you're right, but on face value, it seems all right.
So to me, he was a believer and he never stopped believing. Although he's, he'd been taught that heaven and hell existed and people needed to seek God. He just had this revelation that he didn't stop believing, but he took things more literally, where he thought Jesus died for everyone, and even those that didn't accept God could be taken in heaven, and I don't see anything wrong with that.
No.
And there may be people that watch this film that do see things, and obviously we saw people in his church get up and leave based on his preach, but I just liked that you could have a religious, like a head an icon that you could relate to and understand. Okay, hey, maybe we need to switch things up a bit. Maybe we need to change. Maybe we need to adapt and move forward.
Yeah, and I wonder if this is why this film works on a mainstream level because that notion is so accessible to people who aren't overly religious. And I think we'll get into that later on as well, because I think you need to be careful when you're treading on this kind of ground, because they do take a side with the way they portray religion and what they believe.
Yeah.
What I like about the way they shot Carlton, particularly early on, is that he was so flustered and so uninspired in the scenes at the beginning, and his family home was really dark and it was really cold and it was really lifeless, and that brief period where he gets that message from God and everything kind of changes in his, not his beliefs per se, but the
interpretation.
The interpretation of his beliefs. Good point. He's light and he's confident and he's assured, and the scenes in his house, all of a sudden they're really bright. And you notice that when Jason Segel's character, they'll come to his house, like, I've never seen that room in your house before, but because this is a guy who's like actually enlightened, and they show you that really well.
Awesome pickup, yeah.
It made it really easy for an audience member to read along with where that character's at and how he's feeling, and that's taken away again right at the end, and he recedes back into the dark, literally, and a lot more close-ups of him, feeling uninspired again and feeling lifeless. And
there's a scene towards the end in the in that warehouse that he's looking for and that highlights that so well.
Yeah,
just this huge warehouse with literally him and the assistant, and that's it. And just show like.
But how many close-ups of him in there, and all you can see is him, and you feel trapped inside this frame.
Yep.
And
even though it was a huge environment, you could it's exactly what you're saying.
It was really clever. But again, when he did have that enlightenment, he was a different guy, and he was so like free spirited and confident. I really liked the way they did that, and like, I don't know if we're going to mention it again, but I thought Chiwetel Ejiofor was unbelievable. I said it before, I was eating out of the palm of his hand. His delivery, and I've seen a lot of stuff where he's in, and he was actually playing this character. This wasn't Chiwetel Ejiofor playing Chiwetel Ejiofor. He was out of himself in this, and I loved it.
I don't think I've seen him in anything I didn't like him in.
He's one of those guys that you always think he's bigger than he is, and then you go, well, actually, he's done some good stuff, but he never quite reached that movie star status. He got nominated for that Oscar.
And was it 12 Years a Slave?
12 Years a Slave, like 2012, 2013 or whatever it was. And I think everyone just kind of expected, like, he's going to really... And I think he's got a really good career and he's done some really good roles. But he's never quite been that movie star.
He's excellent in Serenity, which is like the spin-off movie of Firefly, the Joss Whedon TV show,
space one.
Yeah, he was excellent in that.
He's great.
Yeah,
he's even in Secret in Their Eyes. He's very good in that as well. But yeah, I thought he was amazing. I really do, and I can't stress it. And I don't want to say this. You know what? I told myself I'm going to say it, and now we're talking. I'm going to say it. In the 80 films we've done on Netflix, this could be my favorite performance.
Oh wow,
he was amazing.
Spoiler alert for our
I thought that,
top 100.
I'm like, that's still 20 weeks away.
Wow. Well, okay, good. So I'm going to sort of segue a little bit into his wife, Gina.
Yep.
Because she was almost my favourite character in this film. I thought that the way that she was through her relationship with Carlton was amazing. I just thought that from the start, you get this feeling that she feels threatened the whole time. She's in this relationship that she tells you it's practically an arranged marriage. And then when you start seeing these scenes that you're talking about where he's sort of had this new understanding, and her, like, she realizes, I actually love this guy. This guy I'm with, like, I think she speaks differently, and she says, I feel more connected now. I feel so much more connected.
She's more empowered too.
And she defends him. She looks out for him. She's like, I just really enjoyed her as a character.
Now you're actually going to support my notion of her right now with everything that you just said, and we kind of touched on it before that you did have quite a historical religious background with school and growing up.
Sure.
But you're not particularly religious now? Is that kind of how you'd say? Yeah. I think that most non-religious audience would really cling to her because she's that point of view that might reflect our own point of view, right?
Yeah.
Which is why she's kind of painted to be so rational and not bound by what might happen in the four walls of the church. And even though Carlton does have this epiphanous moment, he's still bound by what he believes in God. And I mean, it's even evident when he talks about gays. You are gay, and I can appreciate that, but you don't have to do gay. that sort of notion is still just like, ooh, why are you saying that? But she's not like that. And I think everyone else, and we'll get to Henry in a second, everyone else is really just like, this is my world. Religion is my world, and everything that stands outside of that isn't that important to me. Yep. But she's kind of whole world, can see the whole thing. So
100. Yeah,
I think we all kind of cling to her.
Yeah. You've mentioned Henry.
Yeah,
Jason Segel was my highlight of
Loved
the performance. Him. He was excellent. I just thought his performance was just superb.
You're so right. Like, I don't want to take away from how, because I thought Ejiofor was great. Doesn't mean Segel wasn't.
For me, that was my standout in this film. Was him, and he's just this dedicated guy who's like stood by Carlton for years. He's looked out for him, did everything he wanted. He's fully dedicated to his faith, and even though they have their misunderstandings or their differing ideas about what's being interpreted, at the end you still get to see him come back and be like, I learned from the best. Like, I just loved that whole arc of him.
You're right. I appreciated that as well. I think you absolutely nailed that. Henry he's just so obsessed with God, and he needs everything to be how it is in the Bible. And in that sense, he doesn't necessarily think for himself. He's being told, and he believes it, and that's great. You know what? If that's how you want to be, no problem from my point of view. But it's that whole epitome of the idea that your religious belief trumps everything else. And these guys who had this really serious friendship through 20 years, they built a lot together. Very civil with each other, still very friendly, but they weren't friends by the end of it. They literally went their separate ways, and it's just a crazy thought. But I guess it does happen with lots of other things outside religion. But there's something about religion that if you believe as much as you do and someone doesn't, then that doesn't work.
Yeah, good point. I've got Reggie down next.
Yeah,
because you mentioned before Lakeith Stanfield, like, he was good, but it's a role that he's just sort of in the background a little bit. But I appreciated that apart, like, you had someone that obviously he had, had this lifestyle that wasn't necessarily accepted by the church.
He was gay.
Yep. And he makes comments like, I don't know what I'd do without the church, because for him, it's just so important to him, this community, this group of people. He's got something to look forward to. And I like at the end that we do get this sort of closure where it's like, he gets told by Carlton that, I'm sort of going into my scenes because I don't want to go into
I'm trying
to avoid my
but still, if it's relevant, it's relevant.
Yeah, so I just like that there was sort of like this acknowledgement at the end that it doesn't matter, it's how he lives, how he lives his life that matters, and if he lives his life how he lives his life and he's a good person, Carlton's happy with that.
Do you think he kind of did Reggie get what's the word? Did he kind of become okay with the way things ended with him and Carlton? Because their final meeting was a bit testy for a little bit, and were you satisfied with the way Carlton kind of accepted him, or because like the way I read it is Reggie ain't got long to live.
Yep.
Reggie's on the way
out.
Yeah. He admits he has that big conversation with Carlton, and I know I'm going to go into your scenes here,
yep.
But talking about, like being gay and doing gay, they are the same thing. Like, I'm gay, that's the way it is. I've been seeing someone. This is all great. Do you think Carlton accepts that? And do you think Reggie's happy with the way that finished up? I wasn't sure.
I think that based on what you know about what Carlton goes on to do, I think that he's promoting this acceptance. So I had this feeling that, it's so hard without
but do it.
I feel like that. Yeah, he was happy with his thoughts on how it is, and he's promoted that acceptance and appreciating each other and love rather than focusing on sins, I guess.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
Reggie was interesting. That whole gay thing, when it came up, I was like, well, this is another little situation we've got to work ourselves around.
Yeah. I've got Uncle Quincy down too.
Oh, yeah.
I've put it, so there's a small role
just the
for
one
Glover.
Scene for Danny Glover?
Just the one scene, but important because
of course,
the inability for Carlton to adapt or change his beliefs at the start led to Quincy's sort of downfall, and he wanted him to be there to save him for his faith, and he couldn't literally save him, and I feel like that was really important to show that, because and this is getting into the scenes again, but like it's almost a mirror scene to Reggie at the end.
100%. I thought the exact same thing.
I just thought that he was an important character to touch on, because without that character and that small one scene, you don't get that full picture circle of what happened.
Yeah, I mean, after Quincy dies and Carlton goes to visit Oral Roberts,
Yep.
he has that conversation of like, here I am trying to like save the world, and I've got all these people back home that I haven't been able to save, and that idea gets internalized in him, and I think he learns with the whole Reggie situation. He could easily just turn his back and go, oh, you've chosen to do that? Yeah. Well, I'm not going to go with you. And he does sort of make that, and he learns from what happened with Quincy, and it was very much a mirror image.
Yeah. And you spoke about Oral,
yeah.
And he's an important role, obviously, prior to the film in Carlton developing his faith. He's very conservative, though.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's sort of good to have those pillars of difference where he is so conservative, where you got this guy who spent 20 years, looked at him like a son together, been really close, and to sort of see him step away from that.
It turns his back immediately, really.
Yeah. Oh, not even like Oral turning his back, but
Carlton.
For Carlton to sort of take those small steps away from someone who's had such an important role in his life.
But I think that's that clarity we're talking about. Like, he was so sure on this change in interpretation that it didn't even matter.
No.
Because Oral Roberts was, in this film, portrayed really old school, really white, and we can get to race later on. Ultimately, in 2019, watching this film, pretty backwards in his thinking, but
2020. Sorry,
yeah.
we
got to 2020, didn't we?
How crazy is that?
Like
a month in.
But they paint him as pretty foolish in this film, and they soften that a little bit at the end when he sort of has that phone call saying like, I miss you, and
and says I still think about you and things like that. And I don't know whether, but that's tricky, because is he just doing that because his son's like ripped him off? And
I kind of think that they're trying to save face a little bit, because Roberts is a real dude. And from what I can gather, a very popular, a very charismatic kind of, obviously he passed away now, but a very popular and charismatic figure in this world, and they portray him to be a bit of a fool and a bit heartless, and maybe he wasn't exactly that. So I don't know if that was just like a little bit of you're not terrible.
We need to keep face. Any other characters?
No more characters.
All right, well, the director, Joshua Marston.
What
did you find out about him?
Well, he's quite well acclaimed with plenty of TV and film credits from around about 2004.
Yeah.
For me, he wrote and directed a segment on New York, I Love You, which is one of my favourite films, about this sweet old couple. It's like a 7-minute segment. I think they're celebrating like their 60th anniversary, and they're just going for a walk to this bench where they like had there's like they're bickering, and it's nice. A very sweet little piece.
Good.
But this is the first feature that he's done that he hadn't written himself.
Yes, because he did one called Maria Full of Grace, which I hadn't heard of.
Yeah, but won a few awards with that.
Yeah, and done a lot of directing for TV, like you mentioned, like some big shows too, like Ray Donovan.
Done a lot of Ray Donovan, yeah.
Law and Order, The Good Wife, big shows.
No, so he's been around.
Yeah, which like we've touched on this, but the cast pretty good.
Pretty good, man.
Pretty good.
I hate to have like movie star mentality. I know I've just gone Ejiofor's on a movie star. I hate to have movie star mentality where you're like, if you put me a good actor in a film, I'm gonna like it. But that's kind of happened here.
It did, yeah.
A couple of good actors. And
same for me.
Makes a difference.
Sure does. Okay, scene time. Time to talk about some scenes that stood out for us.
Scenes. Well, I'll get more specific, but basically anything that had Chiwetel and Jason Segel together,
tick.
They were just awesome together. But more specifically, I was completely sucked into that very first sermon that he had about love and spreading love. I thought he was really enigmatic in that film. And it was a really nice introduction to Jason Segel's character as well, when he's talking about like blacks and whites. And you see Segel looking sheepish when he starts talking funny things about white people. I'm like, look at this. He's like the whitest dude. He's such a dag. But he's a great friend, a great support, and believes every word this guy's saying. So really good introduction scene there. And I'm going to almost apologise here, because there was a period there where I was just like bang, 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 because every scene just meant something to me.
Good.
So the scene at the diner. So after he first told them about his thoughts, and firstly he's with Reggie, and that's when we find out Reggie's gay. I don't think we found out before that. Did I miss something?
Yeah, probably.
I think that's when we found it out, and that's when he first said there's a difference between being gay and doing gay.
Yep.
And then Oral comes in with his son,
who's also gay.
Which we don't know.
Not at this stage. Yeah. Yes, true. Sorry.
Not at this stage.
Not at this stage.
But he doesn't he starts talking about Carlton starts talking about the fact that he doesn't feel like he needs to help people anymore, and he just looks free of that burden that he had. But you also notice this real black versus white separation in that sense, where Carlton's there with Reggie, Oral and his son sit on the other side of the table, and it's real like old school, new school. You've got what you think of a gay guy and a guy who's just said there's no hell versus, if you do this, it's all fine. Just retract what you said and everything's okay.
Yep.
Loved it. Just everything about that scene kind of fed into everything else we're about to see. So, and then that led into the sermon where he really doubles down on everything he's going to say. So we didn't really necessarily know which route he was going to take.
Well, they made it out to start like, he's going to apologise.
Going to retract it. And I just loved it. The suspense, the build-up, the fact that he makes such a damn rational argument. And then the crowd really toying with what they're hearing. Some want to go, some are half cheering and celebrating. But again, a very black versus white scene where all the white people basically leave. Yeah. Oh man, I loved that scene.
It's a love fest.
And then it goes to the next scene, basically, sorry, a bit long after, but it's when the guys, including Jason Segel, come to his house. And they're basically talking about, or they're showing the power of their own beliefs. They're talking about what they built together, that chemistry, that love. But those two actors feeding off each other in that scene was so powerful, man. One of the better scenes I've seen in a long time. Before he goes to the council to sort of plead his case, and Lakeith Stanfield's character says, well, what is the message that you're trying to portray? And that's when you kind of realise that, he's feeling really close to God and he's so sure on what he thinks, but what is the message? He hasn't quite figured any of that stuff out yet.
And those closest to him are confused as well.
And they're the ones that are going to be impacted as much as anyone.
Because there's a dinner scene with his wife as well where there's like that confusion where he thinks she's not supporting him.
That's right.
She is,
and she's kind of in this like really good mindset about it. And he's still like, I want to know your opinion. And then the last scene that I've got there is the scene where he leaves the church auction. So he just had that other chat with Henry or Jason Segel's character, and he just breaks down outside and he's hyperventilating and he just can't understand because he truly believes what he's heard and what he thinks, but he's kind of lost his voice and he feels stunted and he's like, so what's the purpose of all this? And you can really feel that in that scene and that performance. And again, that's the claustrophobic camera work of him. And the next scene is the 1 year later scene. So like, that's kind of it. That was the tipping point. Yeah. So
nice.
All those
good bunch of scenes.
Sometimes I just pick these little scenes or these little moments, but they were all scene. Loved it all.
I've got some similar sort of stuff, but I liked them for different reasons too.
Great.
So I didn't want to jump in off the back of them because I was like, the reason I like them are a little bit different. So I wanted to give like the emphasis to what you had to say. So I enjoyed the first scene with Carlton on the plane with the lawyer.
Oh yeah.
I just thought that it was just nice to hear this someone who's sort of seems like they're lost a little bit with their faith, and he's like. And she's like, what did you enjoy the most about your time with church? She's like, my family. Yeah. And I just thought that was really cool. And he's like, that's okay. Let's sit together. Let's hold hands. Let's do this. And it was good that he was able to use that as a story in his sermons, which led into the first one that had you.
But you still feel like he was tired and not disinterested. Like he was just so good at what he did, and he was so enigmatic. But again, it was dark as well.
This is this is probably my favourite scene. Not my favourite scene, but I really enjoyed the scene where Gina and Carlton, after Henry had visited her by herself. So this is where I finally started to see this change of her and the development of Gina into more than this arranged relationship that we saw. She makes this comment, because he's like, I just want to see the church go up in smoke. You don't really care about it. And she's like, no, I want to be part of something meaningful. And she finally sees that meaning in him. And from then on, you sort of see her, she's up in church, like clapping and singing. Like there's just these little things where you see her that she wasn't doing before. She was complaining about her hat. Now I'm into this because I feel this, what's been said and how he's been touched by the word of God. Yeah.
It's funny because you get the idea that she's not as religious as everybody else. They have that scene at the very start where she gets the words wrong in a
and she says like, I'm not the poster girl wife that you want, sort of thing.
So when things like, you get the feeling that her opinion is just discounted always, and she doesn't even have a voice in that world. And as soon as he sort of starts to change, she's like, oh, okay, I can see what you're saying. Let's do this together.
Which I really liked. And you mentioned this scene, but this was my favourite scene, and it's where Henry rocks up to that house and they have that conversation. And you mentioned that you really enjoyed, the banter or the chat between the connection between the two characters. For me, it was seeing Gina defend him.
Yeah.
For me, her defending him and the performance from Segel in this was just so great. And they finished off with each. You can always change your mind. Either of them could change their mind if they wanted to, but Segel was so good in that scene, and just that connection that Gina had, such a good scene.
I want to watch it again, Jesse.
Ooh, early. We haven't even finished the podcast.
No. I want to watch that scene again.
That scene, good. Okay. I mentioned this. I really like the auction scene where they're selling off all the church's assets. Carlton's pretty much done and dusted, and Henry coming in, and then I think you mentioned too, he goes off and cries, and that was just so powerful.
Oof, yeah.
The scene where Carlton visits Reggie at the end.
Yeah.
Like I said, but prior it was with the uncle at the start.
Yeah.
It was when the time comes, you'll be with God wherever it is. It doesn't matter where it is. And then that led on to Carlton leaving, and he went down to the water. He went down and he poured this water over his head. And to me, that was just the perfect symbol of, he was baptizing himself of, this is the path I'm taking now. This is what I'm baptizing myself in, these beliefs that everyone should be accepted, especially after that conversation with Reggie.
Yep.
So he's I don't care who people are, I'm accepting everyone. And I really liked that. I thought that was powerful.
It's a great film, wasn't it?
All right. What is there anything that you didn't like?
There's only one.
Yep.
When he went to the African American Council.
I think I only have one scene too, and it might be the same.
I just feel like he didn't really get the chance to plead his case.
Yep.
I enjoyed the transition from that scene into the auction scene, because that was this is the impact of what's just happened. But he kind of said one thing, and he tried to make it relatable by bringing in that obviously higher bishop that and meant reference the dad, but he barely got to say anything else before everyone just condemned him, and that was it. So that kind of annoyed me.
I 100% agree with that. the opportunity for him to speak to his peers, it was not as impactful as it should have been.
Yeah.
His speech should have been so much more impactful, and I get that in the end he didn't win with his speech or whatever, and maybe that's why they didn't push it to be this big redeeming speech, because at the end it wasn't. But he was pretty much removed from his post, and that's what they leave it on. I was like, that didn't sit right with me.
Yeah, it's again, we're talking about a true story here, and that's what happened. So
Exactly.
I just feel like he didn't get a chance to really talk.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I had to say.
We should have watched this film together.
We should. Well, I didn't want to, because I thought
love
you were going to hate
that you
this
thought
film.
that I hated it.
So, what's this film saying? What are some things some ideas, some thoughts?
Well, let's talk about the religion side of things, because I think it is quite a harsh take on it. Pearson, the character feels more human the further he slips away from the conventional thinking of God.
Yes.
And I can understand, if you are a religious person, that's pretty jarring. And it's a pretty strong take from the film. Let's not just say Joshua Marston, because this is the entire film, and probably maybe the character as well. But I don't know how well that sits with me. And I'm not a particularly religious man myself. I believe in God, but I believe in God the way I believe in him. I don't think that I necessarily need to abide by every word of the Bible. But I believe there's a higher power, and I believe he looks after us all. But I've just felt a little bit uneasy the way that they painted religion to be pretty negative.
I agree with what you're saying, but I also took this stance through the Henry character that it's okay to stand firm in your beliefs, because you're still taking an honourable path regardless of the consequences of that. So for Carlton, the consequences of that are losing your church. For him, the consequences of that are losing a friend. So as long as I still thought that they didn't paint Henry as a bad character, even though he's still stuck with his faith. So I agree. It's a very tricky line, and it's hard where it stands. But
I believe what you're saying literally, because I think that literally that is the message of the film. But the fact that everyone's going to relate to the wife character, who is the most rational and is the most normal. The fact that people like Oral, and people like the white people storming out of church when they've just made such a rational argument. Yeah. They all seem like they're idiots. And I think you got to be really careful with that. I'll be honest, watching the film, and connecting with the film, it didn't bother me. I didn't think about it.
Yeah.
But it's on reflection. I'm like, you just need to have a little bit of social awareness. Not that they've done a bad thing, but just be careful with what you're saying there. That's one comment I've just thought of.
And it's like, that's the effect of divisiveness too. Like, the intolerance of other people's beliefs. Like, you can still believe in the one God, but you still can be intolerant to each other. Like, to me, that's like crazy. Like,
yeah.
And that's why I think I had this connection with Carlton, where he's promoting this gospel of inclusion, and they'd make lots of mention about the emphasis on people misquoting the scripture, and they make that comment with the wife at the start as well, not just him as well.
Yeah.
But I think that if the message of this is trying to say, let people interpret things how they want. Like, it's like, if I talk about film, we disagree. There's no right or wrong answer. We can both interpret it how we want. So why can't that be the same for like religion at times?
Which I agree, and which is probably one of the reasons why it resonated with me, because that's how I think of it.
Yeah.
I'd be very curious to see someone who is completely agnostic or just has no connection to religion whatsoever, what they think of this film, whether it still works in any way.
They might be able to connect with Carlton, because that's almost what
that's the idea, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a tough one.
Yeah. I also think they explore really nicely the idea of a spiritual crisis versus spiritual clarity, because what starts as clarity for Carlton very quickly turns out to be crisis, and I think that is epitomised in that scene where he breaks down. As he's like, hang on, this is supposed to be the cleansing fuel for me, and all of a sudden I don't know what I'm doing. I've lost everything that I thought I had. So it's a nice exploration there.
Anything else?
I think it also more literally talks about the existence of God and his power, and the idea of whether there's a hell or not.
Hell and heaven and purgatory. What is
existence? I got no answer on that, and this film hasn't made me any closer to having an answer on that.
And that wouldn't have been the point.
No, certainly not. But I think the other thing that it does touch on nicely is that sense of purpose. And when, despite having the period where we see this free and unflustered character, as soon as he loses his purpose, he's all gone again, regardless of that connection he has with God. So.
I think that it has this idea too, that there's a reason for things. There's a reason why he had this revelation. There's reasons for everything that happens in this film, and while they may not give full explanations for, like what we're saying with hell and heaven, I feel like for characters there are reasons for their actions and everything that's happened. Yeah, I felt that.
Yeah, for sure.
What do we take away from this film?
So my love for this film, as I sort of said before, is purely on the face value and the visceral connection that I had whilst I was watching it. So I was really moved by the performances, and I was drawn in by the questions that the film was asking. But, a movie like this is saying a lot about religion, and there's a social responsibility attached to it. But I actually connected with the ideas of Bishop Pearson, because it's kind of the God that I believe in. So like, that's, so
it sits well.
I can't ignore that. That's a reason why I like the film. So, but I also would have loved to have watched this in the cinema.
Yeah.
So I think you can get a little bit lost by not watching a film like this in the cinema. Like, I think I paused it twice just because I don't know whether like a dog was playing up or I had to, get something out. I don't know what it was, but it would have added to the overall atmosphere, because
being able to watch it from the start to the end
in a dark room in a massive screen,
and some of that music would have been awesome too. Like, I love that sort of gospel, like upbeat sort of music.
But
like,
those scenes with that big dialogue would have just I would have like melted out of those speakers. Would have loved it. What are you taking away from this film?
Yeah, this is a new story for me. So I enjoyed, and I love my history. So I do like learning about people that are significant in the world who have done things that, that I feel like I connected with him, because I thought what he was doing was positive. So to me, this is a good story to learn about someone who I didn't know about, and who I am happy to now talk to people and go, hey, even today before we recorded this podcast, I was like talking to a colleague, and he's talking about, what do you got? I got youth group on tonight. I'm like, I just watched this film about this pastor who...
Did he know?
No, I had no idea. I was like, I don't want to tell you too much of the story, but this is what happened, and this is where he was at, and I was like, it's a really cool, really cool
straight away. Look at you peddling.
I know. So yeah, that's
ask your colleague if he believes in hell or not.
Gee, I didn't want to push that. Didn't want to push the friendship. All right, IMDb. Did you get on at any stage to check anything out?
The only reason I jumped on IMDb was to look up who directed it.
Okay.
Because I was loving it. I thought it was a big film with big actors, and I just wasn't sure who directed it. I'd not heard of Joshua Marston until now.
Yeah. I didn't get on. This is the first time in a while. Didn't jump on. So
a lot of recognisable faces, that helps.
Yeah. Have you got any questions?
Well, yeah. We haven't.
Don't ask me if there's a heaven or hell, because I'm not giving you an answer.
Well, I was gonna say, without going too deep, what are your thoughts on his philosophies on God being more merciful than some might believe, and the existence of hell? But
I just like the idea that
you don't have to answer it, but
no, I'll answer it in a roundabout way.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna probably give you the full answer, like the direct answer, but I just feel like that if you're able to preach acceptance, tolerance, and love, then that's the sort of faith that I would be interested in.
Yeah.
No matter your gender, your orientation, your race, whatever, your religion, accept everyone for who they are. And that's my thoughts on this.
Yeah.
And that's what I sort of took from this, is that there's this one guy who's in this very in this religiously biased place that has such strong beliefs in their doctrine that it's nice to see him sort of break away and be like, hey, we can still believe in everything that you're saying, but how about we accept others? Yeah. We accept more people. We be more inclusive. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, I know. I think, that was what was so good about those passages that he pulled out in that sermon, basically saying explicitly that anyone can come in the kingdom of heaven, sort of thing.
Yeah,
you don't have to believe. You don't have to follow me your whole life.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing about studying texts or books or films. There are so many ways to interpret things, and I don't think people should be telling people how to interpret things. That's what we're in a society where people are strong enough to believe and think how they want to think. So good on this guy for actually challenging that. And
we got your answer in the end, Jesse. That wasn't even roundabout.
I'm just good on this guy for challenging it and being this is what I took from it. What's wrong with that?
Are you going to listen to This American Life?
It's a good question. Probably, I have such a bank of podcasts. I had to.
You got a bank of everything. So Jesse's got a watch list on Letterboxd of 2,000 films that he doesn't even check out anymore.
You've over exaggerated. That's double what's on there. I've only got about 1,000. Come on. No, I literally had to delete some photos off my phone to make room for podcasts. I've got that many podcasts downloaded.
You got to stop listening to our podcast, mate.
I listen to podcasts at double speed so I can get machine through them, but I'm just struggling to keep up.
Just take a step back and enjoy it.
So probably not. I'll say no.
Okay, I might listen to it.
And I'll blame Sean Fennessy for putting out an hour and a half podcast every second day.
Yeah, but I'll be frank. Sometimes the back half of those episodes aren't.
I love the interviews with the creative people are great.
But sometimes they talk a lot about a film that I haven't seen that I don't want to know.
Generally, they do a good job of not spoiling. Yeah. So we're talking about the Big Picture podcast. If anyone's interested in listening,
I'm sure if someone listens to Flix Forum, they listen to the Big Picture.
You hope so. And Sean Fennessy is now on Letterboxd. So
he is, yeah. In
his latest episode, he mentioned that he's spent some time on Letterboxd. So I love that. That was great.
Not that we have any link to Letterboxd. We just like it as
or
a
Sean
product.
Fennessy. Hey, Sean. Any other questions?
That's all, mate. What do you got?
I just have a statement.
Okay.
I just thought, what a title, Come Sunday. When that was dropped into the dialogue,
that's good, wasn't it?
I just had this moment. I was like, because he's I think it was from Oral, the Oral dude, and he's like, "Come Sunday, make this right."
Yeah.
And I was like, Sunday came, and he did not make this right, and I love that still. Yeah. So that was just a statement.
Very nice.
Sorry, no question.
No, that's good. Yeah, I can't really answer that. I also liked it.
Did you like it? Let's go back. Did you like the title?
Yeah, good call.
Do you think that it should have had... No. All right, so time to wrap it up?
I think we are.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
So we give our films a rating out of 5, then average it out. MJ, drums rolling.
Yeah, well, I've said it all already, but I was completely stirred by this film, particularly the performance of Chiwetel Ejiofor. Every single scene felt like it was important, and the questions it raised not only resonated with me, but they got me thinking and considering my own perspective. This is a great movie, and I feel like I'm being a little bit conservative, but I'm giving it 4 stars.
Very nice.
4's a big...
Coming into this, I was like, okay, I'm thinking maybe 1.5, 2. How do I even this out so it's not too big a discrepancy?
Right. This was a belter, mate.
I enjoyed the performances in this so much. I really enjoyed learning about a character in life who I hadn't heard about before. I really enjoyed what he had to say as a character. So I'm giving it 3.5.
3.5?
Yeah.
And you were trying to pull it up.
Yeah. So 3.5 out of 5. That gives us a 3.75.
You're allowed to change that. Nothing.
No, I had it set in stone at 3. Like, that was where I was at.
I mean, after this conversation, I was like, this film could be even better than I thought.
Yeah. 3.75, that's pretty
That's
high.
big, man.
That's
big.
huge.
Yeah. We don't have heater to pull it down.
Poor Heater. All right, well, we're on social media. We have Facebook, we have Twitter, we have Instagram. We are on Podbean, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, wherever.
We're on a lot of places.
Castbox, wherever you can find good podcasts. Google search.
Or even bad podcasts. We're probably there as well.
Possibly. We like to have a question. So this question's like a little bit deep. I was like, I need something a little bit deep to finish
This could be a deep.
because this was a deep
No,
review.
this is all right.
So, will the world ever accept differences even when there's disagreement?
No, not the world. The world's too big.
I would love that if by the time I roll over and cark it, if we could accept most things.
Wouldn't that be nice? You know what?
I would just be lovely.
I was walking to work today, and someone was looking at me funny. And it started to annoy me. I had my headphones in, and it started to annoy me that this person was looking at me funny. And I thought, why is my first thought when someone's looking at me funny to be negative? And I'm like, I'm the problem, you know? Like, you sit there and you walk past people in the street, and you're just like, oh, who's this idiot? Like, what's this guy doing? Imagine if you just thought about everyone in such a positive light and go, oh, this person, I hope they're having a good day. Or, and I'm a generally pretty positive person, and I do have time for a lot of people, but even that mindset, and a lot of people are just like that. And that's how humans are, and it sucks. If you can think of a way to change it, man, you are like Nelson Mandela. That's big.
That's big. Yeah.
So unfortunately, I think
it's not going to be from either of us, I don't think. But hopefully, there's someone out there that can.
Hopefully, there is. No, I agree. It'd be great, like the anti-Hitler to really pull the troops together. Yeah. Sadly, I don't think that's going to happen, though, Jesse.
That's all right. I was just being optimistic.
We can be optimistic.
Pessimistic. Okay, so next week we're back.
Yeah. What do we got?
We have another 2018 film. We're making our way through 2018
Probably still
slowly.
in April 2018.
April 2018. So a few months to go. It's a French film.
A few months to go.
A few months to kick through to
A year and a half.
2019. Oh, really? Oh, man. French romantic comedy from 2018. Foreign language film. It's called I Am Not an Easy Man.
Cool.
I haven't included the translation or the French title because I don't want to stuff it up.
Yeah, embarrassing.
It's directed by Eleanor Porat, and it stars Vincent Albers, Marie-Sophie Ferdin, and Pierre Benitez and Moon Daly.
Okay. Did you say romantic comedy?
It is a romantic comedy.
Cool. That could be a bit of fun.
Could be. Hope so.
Was Blockbuster, was that French?
It was French as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So another French film, which
That's a good film.
So that'll be next week.
All right. I'll
Make sure you've got the dub on in French with the English subtitles.
Remember when we watched that anime film and I had the bloody English dub, and it was I watched it for like 3 minutes with the English dub. I'm like, you guys got English dub? Like, no, it's Japanese.
It's Japanese.
All right, we'll get that right.
Good. Nice chatting. Glad we had a film that we both
Awesome
enjoyed.
chat. I'm glad that I surprised you with what I thought of it.
Massive surprise. I love that. That was great. And I'll see you next week.
You certainly will. See you, mate.